Joining me today, I have beekeeper Gordon Janzen. He is also a regional representative with the Canadian Food Grains Bank here in Manitoba, as well as Northwest Ontario. Thank you, Gordon, for joining us today.
Yeah, it's good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So let's talk about the beekeeping first of all, if that's all right. I would love to know, how long have you been a beekeeper? And if you want to expand a little bit on what that means and maybe even your favorite aspect of the job, tell me a little
Sure.
more.
Yeah, I've been beekeeping or keeping bees for 9 years now in Winnipeg, and I have four hives now in my backyard. Ideally, I just like to have two hives, but I had to split them in spring, and so I had because they were quite strong, and I so now I have four. It's a little bit more than I want as a hobbyist, but I really enjoy working with bees. I'm not sure exactly why I got into them. I took an hobbyist beekeeper course at U of M, and that helped me get going. And I just enjoy keeping bees, looking at them, and they're right in my backyard, so I can monitor them. I don't have to drive a long way to an apiary out of the city, and they are registered now with the city, so they're legal.
Very interesting.
Yeah,
And do you get stung? Are you ever afraid, or is this like wonderful?
yeah. No, I do get stung. I don't
Hmm,
like getting stung, but I
of
kind
course.
of gotten used to that a little bit. We have dogs in, and they stay away from the
The bee area.
beehives in the back. So we just have just barely enough room for that, and it all works quite well. Yeah.
Well, that's great. So I got to ask, and I don't want to just assume, do you eat honey from these hives?
Oh yes. Um, we have honey and a lot more than we need, and so I sell honey.
Cool.
So I sell honey to, by word of mouth to friends and people in our community, and um, I sell it on Kijiji or Marketplace and at my workplace as well.
That's amazing. So I heard that seven beekeepers raised a ton of money last year in donations for the Food Grains Bank. Would you tell me a little bit more about that? Were you involved? And yeah, what does that mean? Give us the
Yeah,
details.
well, it kind of started because I work as I mentioned, as a regional representative for Canadian Food Grains Bank, and and uh, a large part of that work is connecting with growing projects around Manitoba. We have 41 community projects, and most of those are grain growing projects. So, uh, and the people are incredibly generous and creative in their fundraising for and our work is to address global hunger. So, with working with these groups, I thought, why should the grain farmers have all the fun? What about beekeepers, that whole sector? And it was when we finally got a way to have a donation page, and I could send this out to beekeepers and invite them to donate. And so it's just simply an invitation to beekeepers to commit uh, a number of hives from their operation, or the proceeds of a number of hives to this growing project, and then they can choose any one of our member agencies that would use those funds to address global hunger. So we have a number of beekeepers that have committed one or more hives, the proceeds of those. So, yeah.
Wow. And then last year, $17,000 came in
Yeah.
just from honey.
Yeah. It
That's
was
great.
almost 17,000, and we were just really pleased with that. I'm hoping to get a few. I'd like to have the same or more number of beekeepers involved. So this is an invitation. I'll throw out the invitation to both hobbyists and to commercial beekeepers to be involved.
Wonderful. I would love to know, if you don't mind me asking, why is working with Canadian Food Grains Bank important to you? How did you get into this?
Well, I've been involved with this work in this role for 7 years now, almost, and have I've really enjoyed um, the bringing together of the international issues of global hunger, but working with rural people and farmers, and also the faith connections, the involvements of churches as well. So I've enjoyed being at the nexus of those issues, and I think we don't always we're not always aware of the incredible number of people who experience chronic hunger. And right now, the estimate is that there's 757 million people that experience chronic hunger. So that's more than we can imagine. And Food Grains Bank addresses at least part of that. We're focused on addressing that both in crisis and in long-term development work.
Researching the news in the last few months, I've heard of a couple countries that are just at like peak levels of starvation and, trying to get food in there. And so,
Yeah,
does the Canadian Food Grains Bank, do they address, like you said, some of those crises that happen?
yeah. We Our member agencies through Food Grains Bank are involved in the countries that are at highest have the highest number of hunger experiences there, and that includes Sudan and South Sudan, where there's been a war in Sudan since beginning of last year. Millions of people have been displaced both within Sudan and then into surrounding countries. So that's one example, but also um, uh, conflict is causing hunger in several other countries, and changes, extreme climate issues that are also exacerbating some of the issues in other places.
If someone is a beekeeper, an apiarist, or even just people in general who want to help fight hunger around the globe, how can they get involved with you?
Well, I would invite people to contact me if they can find me, uh, or just as a donation to the Food Grains Bank, which has the tag beekeepers. Then those donations will go into uh, this growing project. There's also a donation page at foodgrainsbank.ca/beekeepers.
Wonderful. Is there
Yeah.
anything else you wanted to share today, Gordon?
Well, I just want to send a shout out to all of our community projects, whether they're the beekeepers or grain farmers or others. We have auctions and choir fundraising events. So the creativity is amazing, and people are generous, and I just want to thank our supporters for remembering people who experience hunger. So, and if there's beekeepers that want to be involved, I would love to talk to them. And yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much for taking the time. We appreciate it, and we're going to let all our listeners know about this.
Very good. Okay. All the best.